Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg Warner. The automotive industry continues to evolve, and so do the opportunities to define it. Borg Warner, one of the world's most admired companies, gets partners where they need to go. Let's do something big together.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Autoline After Hours. Gary, you ready to do a show?
Absolutely, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm raring to go, is what I would call it.
Perfect.
So let's let the audience know who we've got.
You're going to
with
frighten
us
them
today.
by your raring.
Yeah. Kaylee Hall from Reuters, Luke Ramseth from the Detroit News. Great to have the both of you here. Where should we kick off the conversation, Gary?
So are we going to do the car thing?
Well, we
or
could
not
do a car thing.
thing?
I'll start. I was in California this week. Santa Barbara. Kia is doing the media launch of the Telluride, their big full-size SUV, which is kind of funny. They're doing the media launch now because they've been in dealerships since January, and they were advertised all over the Olympics. But I'm impressed by Kia. You know, they're outselling Hyundai, which, you know, you think, okay, they're outselling Hyundai. Believe me, within the Hyundai group, that is a milestone. You know, I remember when all Kia made was cheap little cars and people made fun of them. Yeah. Now they're outselling Hyundai. And this is the other thing that blew my mind. It's the number 5 brand in the United States. It's Toyota, Ford, Honda, Chevrolet, then Kia.
Wow.
And, you know, if you had even said just 5 years ago, you know, Kia is going to surpass Hyundai and it's going to be the number 5 brand in the U.S., I would have laughed and said, yeah, right. But there we are.
So that'd be like Mercury outselling Lincoln. Oh, no.
Yeah. Right. It'd be like Buick outselling Chevrolet practically. But how about you?
I drove a bunch of cars this week. And so I was in the Polestar 4 today. The swoopy Polestar sedan.
Does it have a back window?
It does not have a back window.
I shouldn't say I hated that, but I noticed that at the auto show, and I was like very
it is
into it.
It is bizarre. So basically, as she says, there's no back window at all.
Yeah, isn't that based on one of the Geely brands? Isn't it a rebadged Geely brand? Is like a Zeekr? Or I'm trying to remember because there's another Geely group car with no back window that I've been in.
Yeah. So basically, your rear view mirror shows you what's behind you. Now this morning in Detroit, it was gloriously sunny, and I found that when I was driving west, a lot of the image was being burned out because of the sun. Yeah. And which is not a good thing.
You need a little visor on the
camera. Keeping it clean and everything too. I mean, just
or just think about during the winter. Yeah, you know, when slush gets kicked up. I'm sure they thought about all that. But the other thing that struck me was that I wear bifocals. Okay, and so when you're looking at a mirror that basically has the image rather than looking at a mirror,
it's a video screen,
right? But I mean, it's placed there.
Yeah.
So basically, you're looking at a flat surface versus when you're looking in a mirror, you actually have a sense of depth, right? So looking in the mirror works very well, and I just found that to be very awkward.
It gives me a headache. I don't like them.
Yeah. So
and I'll tell you why, because your focal point with a mirror is deep into the mirror, as it were, whereas with a video screen, it's just flat. And so when you're driving and you're looking out and you're looking at your door mirrors, and then you look at that inside rear view mirror, your eyes have to shift their focal plane, and I find it annoying.
I asked them at the auto show about the snow, and they said you just have to wipe it off. So
when you're driving, you have to get out, wipe your thing out, and then keep driving.
Stop every mile. Do the thumb swipe on the lens.
I was surprised that they were allowed to have that on the road. Honestly, I thought you had to have visibility, but somehow it passed.
Yeah.
So another vehicle that I was driving this week, and this will get to a point that is a story that she worked on. So I'm driving the Lexus GX 550 Overtrail Plus. Now, what's sort of interesting about this is that of all the Lexus GX 550 models, the Overtrail Plus, which is the off-road-ish sort of one is the highest priced. So you could buy the GX 550 Luxury Plus, and it's not as expensive, and I would think that's sort of counterintuitive, but it just seems crazy. So the base price of this vehicle is $82,845. Now somebody must be buying it, and
now we turn to Kaylee, because you just did a story about affordability.
Yes,
and
my colleague Nora.
Yeah,
who's just here.
Right.
Yeah.
Nora was here a couple of weeks ago. Well, what you guys really pointed out is it's just the people who are buying new cars are opting for fully loaded and upper scale ones to begin with.
Yes. And I mean, part of the reason being is that is a lot of the option available, right? I mean, you have to realize that we definitely have fewer, more affordable vehicles available for folks to shop. So a lot of folks who are in the bottom half of, income, they're going straight to used. I know used has always been like an entry level point, but I think, the dealers I talk to say, more and more it's becoming that. I won't pick on any automakers, but I think we, I think we know some have, really, their offerings for the lower cost consumer are just not there. Chevrolet does have Trax and Trailblazer. Buick has Vista and the Encore GX. So GM does have the offerings. But if you look at some of the other ones, like we mentioned Jeep, and obviously the Jeep, as Luke knows, as the Stellantis reporter at Detroit News, and he can talk to, I mean, they've had a lot of their lineup, their lower cost lineup has gone away, and they've had a lot of more expensive offerings. So we took a while on that story, and we really wanted to get to the root cause of, okay, why is this affordability such an issue, especially with cars? It's the second biggest purchase you make. And, I was in the market last year, and I was like blown away by, I could get, I won't say who was making the vehicle, but it was like an $800 new 3-row SUV, $800 payment a month. Now, if you have childcare, as I do, mortgage, etc., I mean, it's just a lot. And then on top of that, you talk about the overall cost of a vehicle. As everybody knows, in Michigan, insurance is expensive. Yeah. So there's just a lot weighing on people's pocketbooks, and I think a lot more folks are like saying that used market looks pretty good right now. So
I just wanted to say on the used market, and speaking of cars we've been driving, I just bought a used car, 2017, fairly high miles, Cadillac ATS.
Ooh.
And so we can say, like, people are going to turn to the used market here, which they will. But I think when you start to dig into the used market right now, you're going to find that it's pretty expensive there too. Like, it's hard to find, and I think it's really increased just in the last couple of years. But it's hard to find a car that's like low miles, single owner, is what I found, for anything under, I don't know, 15 grand. Yeah. So, I mean, you can say that's way less than your entry level new car, but it's like, there's just limited options out there right now for someone that's really looking at to make their budget.
Yeah. And I think you touched on it here, Kaylee. What the auto industry has done essentially is priced lower income people out of the market. So who's left? People with upper incomes. What are they buying? They're buying full boat vehicles.
Right.
And so when they come off lease, because a lot of it's lease, but when they come into the market 3 years later, they're a whole lot more expensive than used cars might have been in the past.
Yeah.
So we've got full boat vehicles moving into the used car segment.
Yeah.
And it's just squeezing even more people.
So Haley, I mean, John was talking about Kia before. Well, Kia has a lot of vehicles under $30,000.
Yes.
Right. And, you can buy a Toyota under 30,000. You can buy a Honda under 30,000. I mean, and they have, there's some variety there. So, I mean, when you were talking to these dealers, did you get a sense from them that they would like the opportunity to move more of those cars that they may not have in their showroom?
More of the lower cost?
Yeah.
Yes, I think they would like more variety. I think Luke probably would say the same, right? I mean, as far the dealers I talk to say, it would be nice. Some specific brands, especially, they'd like to have more of. What's interesting about Kia is a dealer I spoke to said that, that, like you said, it was kind of known as like this low cost option, but the Telluride has gotten a lot of attention, and he's actually seeing like luxury customers come in. So it's like the brand is sort of changing too. So I would say overall dealers, they, since the pandemic, have definitely leaned more on used in many ways, right? Because they didn't have the new inventory. So I think they've made do with that. But I would say, yes, they would like to have options, especially the Jeep dealers I talked to said, yeah, they would like to have some more options. And they know that that's something that, Stellantis is working on. As we know, Stellantis has been trying to come back from the difficulties it saw. Was that last year, 2024?
Last 2 years, basically.
Yeah.
I was at the big dealer conference out in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and this was like a really big through line there, just like this issue of we need more options, especially going into kind of like a little bit of a moment of kind of economic uncertainty right now. We really would like some lower level options, and the message there was to, like if you can't, whatever you're selling, if you can't get it new, whatever brand you're selling, then stock up that used lot was kind of like the through line, you know, like really think about stocking your used lot right now. So it's definitely something dealers are thinking about. And I think all the automakers right now are increasingly really trying to figure out how do we come in with some lower level, like 20s.
Yeah, because they've been making like really good profit off of selling these much, bigger, techier vehicles. So it's hard to not want to do that, I guess, continuously.
Well, it's even more than that. They don't want to lose money on cheap cars.
Right.
So, all the inexpensive, the sub $30,000 vehicles we've been talking about, they're all imported. And for the Detroit 3 to make a low-cost vehicle with UAW labor, very, very difficult to do. Yeah. And make a decent return because, you got to go in front of the board of directors and say, hey, I need a $1 billion or a $2 billion investment to do this new vehicle. And they go, great, okay, what kind of return will we get on that investment? You have to tell them, well, actually, we're not going to get any return on it. And then they're going to say, sorry, you don't get the money.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The Chevy, the Trax, the Trailblazer, the Buick models, or class models are made in Korea. So I'm sure that's for a reason, right?
Right. That's exactly why. I'm trying to track it down. My guess is the Detroit 3 are paying their UAW workers $40,000 more a year than other non-union workers in the U.S. So that's my estimate. I'd like to see some hard numbers on it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody in the industry, nobody at the automakers. And then compare that to South Korea or Mexico or China, and the gap is even bigger. So I think that's one of the things they got to come to grips with.
All right, John, I got to call you out on this, though.
Okay,
you said all of the sub $30,000 vehicles are imported. The Corolla is built in the United States, and the Civic is built in the United States.
I wondered about the Civic, Marysville, Ohio. Right?
Yes,
no,
but this is where
it's not East Liberty. East Liberty.
Yeah. Okay. So how much less do Honda and Toyota pay their line workers in the U.S. compared to a UAW worker?
Oh, you're bringing us back to the negotiations time.
How much more satisfied are the workers at Toyota and Honda than their colleagues?
Oh, I think they are.
So
yes.
So we all talk dollars and cents, but there's more to work than
you're right. Yeah.
So, gee, John, you can do it here.
Right. Yeah, you can do it here. But what I'm saying is if you're paying, what do you have in your plant? At least 2,000 workers, and you're paying each and every one of them $40,000 more in Michigan than what Honda pays them in Ohio, the state next door.
Yeah.
How do you compete?
I think that you're just on that pay disparity. I think you're onto something there. I do think that in terms of just the hourly pay, in some cases it's a little bit, there's a gap, but it's probably a little bit closer than you might think, just because of in the last couple of years the UAW taking a run at the South. So you saw some kind of adjustments there that brought them a little bit closer to being in line, which kind of was an effort to
Yeah, I don't think they closed the gap.
No, they
I
didn't
think
close
they
the
just
gap. You're
maintained
right.
the gap.
You're right.
And I'm not just talking wages. I'm talking all benefits and profit sharing. You also have to look at absenteeism. You have to look at app uptime. You have to look at lines of demarcation and work rules. So it's not just, what's your hourly rate. It's the whole ball of all in labor cost.
Yeah. Those are numbers that we will look at again very, a couple years from now. But
that's right.
I try to forget them after the negotiations are done.
That's right. And sorry to Ohio, it isn't East Liberty, it's in Greensburg, Indiana. So the
Midwest.
being an Ohio person, I know that you're rooting for it. But
good fact check.
Talking about Stellantis, so there's a lot going on there. Luke, give us.
Let's talk about the story that you had in today's paper. Carvana is buying Stellantis stores.
Yeah.
You take it from there. What the hell is going on? What are the dealers saying?
I'm kind of fascinated with because it has, I think, flown under the radar a little bit. Carvana has been sort of slowly over the last year buying up just one-off around the country these Stellantis, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram stores.
And now for those viewers because we have a global audience here, Carvana is specializing in selling used cars.
That's right.
And they've been doing it online, and their stock price has gone through the roof. And I mean, they're just taking prisoners.
Right. So they've started to do this. Frankly, they've said very little about it on earnings calls or otherwise. I think the most their CEO has said is basically, we're kind of experimenting a little bit here. But they really haven't said much. But clearly they're kind of, they're testing things out maybe a little bit on the new car side. I mean, this isn't a huge play for them. It's not like they bought 20 stores or something like that all in one run.
I know, but when a company that specializes in used online sales buys new car dealerships franchise,
exactly.
Oh, something's going on.
It's interesting. And so this is they are selling these online. It's kind of all running through their main website, just as you would buy a used car on Carvana.com. You can now buy a new car, but you have to be sort of regionally somewhat close to the dealer. But everything is just as their used cars work. So you can order them, basically do the whole process online. You can have them ship it to you. Looks like a lot of these will ship for free, even if you live pretty far from the store. So just some interesting dynamics here, and this has kind of rattled some Stellantis dealers, it seems like, because Carvana has already been a bit of a disruptor in the industry, and I think this is continuing that, and dealers are kind of looking around saying, well, what are they up to here? So
So do you think it goes back to your point about the popularity of used cars? This gives Carvana some money whereby they can do this testing?
I mean, I probably, and I think that I know a lot of Stellantis dealers who were wanting to get out of the Stellantis business, so it's not surprising that they might have sold off their dealerships, right? I mean, I know you've talked to those folks too, that there's the frustration of the one I remember, he had to lay off all of his staff, and finally just kind of said, no, this is enough is enough. And, because they weren't making any profit, and sold the dealership. So it's not surprising that it's Stellantis first, but I'm sure that, what did Carvana say? I'm sure that they expect maybe this could grow for them. It's not.
They haven't really talked much about it, but yeah, the idea is that this is with this particular company, for them, I think they view it as an affordable way in to this new car market to kind of experiment here a little bit. And they haven't said anything about trying it with other brands, but surely you could imagine. I had a few people mention to me, there's some other, companies, automakers, maybe that would be appealing to them, and vice versa. If Carvana can grow volumes at some of these stores, like for example, maybe a Nissan or something like that.
Yeah.
Is this going to be labeled as Carvana, or will it still
the stores are labeled as Carvana with the Chrysler and Dodge Ram brand.
See, that's going to give Carvana a lot more name exposure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Steve, did you look? I mean, AutoNation, which started out as a used car dealer, also sells new cars, and I wonder how they're doing in that space.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean they're huge, and that's. I mean, I think they have a ton of new car stores now.
They do.
So yeah, I think we've seen this sort of different iterations of this type of disruption before, but maybe Carvana is viewed as a little bit of a next tier of it. So.
Is this because they have those glass towers that you can see your car?
The vending machine.
Put in the large coin.
The Pez dispensers.
Yeah,
right.
Your car.
Yeah.
So speaking of Stellantis, we're sticking with it. Chris Feuell, who had been the CEO of the Chrysler brand and I guess was running Alfa Romeo in the U.S.
Yep.
And
decided to leave.
Ram for a little period too.
Right.
Yeah.
But so what have you uncovered on that or anything?
I mean, I don't have a whole lot of kind of reporting or intel on just what exactly led up to her departure. She had been with the company for a while. As you said, Gary, she had been elevated to kind of run Ram for about 6 months in 2024. Tim Kuniskis came back, who is now the CEO of Ram and kind of oversees the other brands. And then she moved back to just overseeing Chrysler and then picked up Alfa Romeo in North America. Now you've got Matt McElroy, who has been the Dodge CEO, is going to now kind of take those two responsibilities of Chrysler and Alfa oversight. And Stellantis hasn't said much kind of about, she just said, this is a personal thing. She's decided to depart, but they also, it's a little bit unclear kind of what's going on here. What I would say is that it's sort of the latest example of, I think, CEO Antonio Filosa continuing to shape his team a little bit here too. I mean, he's been sort of gradually making some leadership adjustments globally since he took over last June. And I'd say I think this is kind of another example of that.
So isn't it just possible that she wants to sleep at night and that
yeah.
Being in charge of Chrysler may be one of the most thankless jobs in the industry?
Absolutely.
I mean, what does she have? Like
minivans.
Minivans. And,
which, as a new mom,
one minivan, yeah.
I'm pro minivan. I think we should bring back the minivan.
I think minivan is the best architecture that exists for a vehicle.
don't know why we went away from them.
Well, and we could talk about the new Pacifica in a minute, but I want to stick with Chris Feuell leaving because I'm trying to read the tea leaves here, what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, Filosa's got his hands full, right? And they've taken this massive EV write-off. Was the future Chrysler EV part of what got canceled? And so Chris Feuell is thinking, wait a minute, we were going to expand the line and now I'm just going to be selling minivans. And I think she had Alfa Romeo too.
Right.
And I mean, boy, there's a brand that is kind of dead on arrival, at least in the American market. So maybe she looked at, I've got this moribund brand called Alfa that's only really got 2 products to sell and sales are going nowhere. And now we've got this minivan and so maybe it's a good time for me to go spend more time with my family. I don't know, but I'm just thinking that there's maybe not much of a future for the Chrysler brand other than the Pacifica.
I think, you might very well be onto something there. We might look back in a year or so. I mean, there was a lot of talk of a crossover coming from Chrysler, I think fairly soon, but there's really been not a lot of kind of chatter about that of late. Yeah. I don't know the current status of that. There is this refresh Pacifica, and there was even kind of some talk of some additional product there down the road. I know they have kind of quietly floated a really affordable option, speaking of kind of the sub 30 range, but I don't think that's right around the corner either. And then to your point on Alfa too, I mean, that's a brand that has not seen a lot of investment there. And both those brands have been the subject of a lot of rumors, I would say, over the last couple of years about whether they might continue on kind of long-term at all. So,
So what do you think? So we were talking about AutoNation a moment ago, and who runs AutoNation? Mike Manley.
who used to run Stellantis.
So what's the possibility that Chris Feuell shows up at Carvana?
Oh boy.
I don't know. I have no idea.
This is the fun. Who's going where? Yeah.
Very interesting.
Could be.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Pacifica. So they're refreshing it.
Yeah, they're refreshing it for 27, and they just kind of unveiled the new look. The front end is kind of the most notable thing that I think is
radically
changing.
different, I would say. For a facelift, it's very noticeable.
Yeah, I'm curious what you guys
in
made
the world
of
of Botox, John. It isn't that different.
No, I wouldn't say like a ton of other changes. Some safety updates, some minor changes to the interior, and then this is maybe viewed as a little bit of a minor thing, but they're, in theory, like the last 2 years, they kind of had two vehicles Chrysler did, and they were like the two minivans, the Voyager and the Pacifica. Now they're just kind of going to call it all the Pacifica. So this like base level trim that was the Voyager, that's going to look different, like the old version, will continue on, but it'll just be called the Pacifica, if that makes sense.
I could never tell the difference anyway. So,
so they'll use the old tooling for the front end of the.
It'll still kind of live on in this Pacifica LX, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. What did you guys think of the refreshed front end on that?
I thought it was good because it's distinctive. You know, anybody who looks at it will go, what's that?
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like an updated Pacifica. I'm strictly speaking about the front end. And it's got more of an EV kind of styling, or even some of the stuff that we're seeing.
Which may not be a good thing.
Which may not be a good thing. Or some of the stuff that we're seeing out of China. And what I'm getting at is it looks very modern, very current. So I think that's a good move on that part.
So I was very surprised that I didn't realize that the PHEV is gone now.
Oh, it is?
26
is gone.
Yeah, and so
the PHEVs, all of the PHEVs are gone. The Jeeps PHEVs are gone. Yeah.
Interesting.
So how is the discussion over there now that hybrids are popular and they're getting rid of them?
That's a good question.
Hybrids are popular, not necessarily plug-in hybrid.
Right.
That's a key thing, and that's, I think, what Stellantis pointed to when they recently, just a couple months ago, decided to axe all of those. Was that we realize where this is going, which is mild hybrids, and that's what they're rolling out with the new Cherokee, and I think they have some more plans there. Another complicating factor for mostly more on the Jeep side than the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid side was just that they had a lot of issues with them. There was a lot of big recalls, and there was some concerns about battery fires, and so I think that was maybe played a role too.
I'm sure it did, but I think even if there had been no recalls at all, those vehicles probably wouldn't have survived, because I don't think they were. Look, you do a PHEV, you add a lot of cost and complexity.
Yep.
Right.
I don't think they were getting the pricing to cover that. Those were compliance products to qualify for ZEV states.
That's right.
And that requirement is gone. So
all right. So let's so although the Pacifica is still the number one minivan, 126,000 last year.
Is that because it's one of the only, or
no? Well, so the Toyota Sienna is second, 101,000 last year. So you're interested in buying a new minivan, and you go into your Toyota dealer and you say, "Oh, that Sienna looks pretty nice," and the guy points out, "Oh, every single one of them is a hybrid. Can't buy a Sienna that's not a hybrid." You say, "Well, okay, thank you. I'm going to go look at the Chrysler dealer, because I know that they invented the minivan." So you go to the Chrysler dealer, and the guy shows you a Pacifica PHEV, and you say, "Well, I was just at the Toyota dealer, and they've got a hybrid." You're able to say, "I've got a plug-in hybrid. That's even better." Just think of how many miles you can drive with no gasoline, pure electricity. Costs a little more, but it's a far superior vehicle. Now they can't make that argument.
True.
They never call it plug-in.
But that was because they were afraid that people would say, "Oh, it's bizarre tech." Sean said they didn't call it a plug-in hybrid.
They didn't even call it a hybrid.
Right.
Oh, they called it a hybrid? Oh, okay.
So I just think that that's a bad timing decision to get rid of that.
I think they were reasonably popular. I mean, the Pacifica plugins were sold decently well the last few years. So, yeah.
And ProMaster City, they're bringing back a smaller commercial van.
That's right. Which is, and I didn't know this until I went to this media event a week ago or so. But did you guys know there have not been any small commercial vans in this market for a few years?
There used to be 5 of them.
And everyone left the market. Yeah.
The Ford Transit Connect. There was the Mercedes Metris. There was the
Nissan.
Nissan NV200. Chevrolet had a rebadged version of that. What am I missing? There was another one.
I don't know.
Well, anyway. And there was
of course,
the Ram ProMaster City. And they all went away. And I didn't realize this before. You know, your fuel economy class that you are measured for your fuel depends on the footprint of the vehicle, which is wheelbase times track.
Okay.
And all of them fell in sort of the small car footprint, which counted against their pass car fuel economy standard, and which dragged them down. I mean, they're commercial vans. They don't get as good a fuel economy. And so that's why when the Ram people thought, hey, we have a chance to bring one back because we have a longer wheelbase one in Europe that bumps it up a class in terms of fuel economy. So it opened the door for this thing to come. But, I mean, this has got to be a program they were looking at 2 to 3 years ago, i.e., before any of the tariffs hit. This is going to be imported from Turkey. And I'm sure that upset those plans a little bit, but obviously they're still going forward with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I found it fascinating that they're doing it now, but I do see that maybe there is a nice opening for them in that space right now. I mean, if you're that certain business that needs a nice little work van, right now you just don't have a lot of options. And I think the pitch as Ram made it last week was like, right now, if you want something new, you've got to go for something pretty chunky.
Yeah. You
got to get a Ford Transit. You got to get the current ProMaster, which is like a lot bigger. So.
Right. No, they said it's wide open space right now. They said the TAM, the total addressable market, was what, like $3 or $4 billion potential. I'm not sure they're going to get that, but it shows there's room to sell.
Okay, but do you honestly think that Ford, which still sells the Transit Connect in Europe in vast numbers, here's a company that basically has made its bones on trucks, right? More than anything else in memory. If there were such great opportunities, don't you think they would have something in this market that's smaller than the Transit?
I think this is going to be one of the models off the UEV platform. So that's my surmising, as we've talked about on the show, that there's going to be multiple models off that platform in that plant. I think a small commercial van.
Small commercial electric van?
Yeah.
So I noticed that Bollinger, Lordstown Motors, Arrival, and Canoe. All of them.
Yeah.
Every single one of them, John.
I know.
But John, you're thinking they're going to wait. They're going to hold off on doing anything until they can do it in that plant and make it all electric.
All I'm saying is they need multiple models. EVs aren't selling that well in this country, right? So you cannot expect this little pickup that they're going to come out with to sell 200,000. That's Ford knows that. So their idea is to build up to 5 different models in that plant off that platform. I think there might be a hot hatch. There's definitely the pickup. I think there's going to be a van. There might be a sedan. I'm not sure what all of them are going to be. Something.
Fire truck.
Love the station wagon.
Hey, we got to take a quick break right now for a shout out to our great sponsors. We're going to be talking a lot more about what's going on in this industry right after that.
Making a life full of memories, one road trip at a time. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Weather Peak tires with a 70,000-mile limited warranty.
The automotive industry continues to evolve, and so do the opportunities to define it. BorgWarner, one of the world's most admired companies, gets its partners where they need to go. Let's do something big, together.
All right, we're back talking all things automotive here. I got a question for Kaylee Hall.
Yes.
We were earlier talking about Chris Feuell leaving
Yes.
Chrysler, leaving Stellantis, I should say.
Yes.
We also saw at Slate, another Chris Barman, CEO, has sort of been demoted to president.
Mm-hmm.
And they're bringing in some other guy. I got to look at his name. It's Peter Farrisee as CEO. What do you make of that?
I was kind of shocked because I thought, you're kind of pretty far along in this process and to have a new CEO. So it was an interesting choice. And I don't know much about him. I know Chris, everybody really likes her, and she has a good reputation. I interviewed her last year when I wrote about Slate coming out. And their concept is interesting. You have to pay for everything. In fact, I got in the truck and I went to put my elbow down and there wasn't anything there. Yeah, you have to buy that. So it's truly like a blank slate. And so you get to make it how you want. It's a cool concept. I think at the end it might be a little more expensive than what they're suggesting, which I think is like under 30,000 or about 30,000.
They keep talking mid-20s.
Mid-20s, yeah.
So, in automotive parlance, mid-20s could be 27,000.
Yeah, it could be 29, 999. So, yeah, it'll be, we just briefly mentioned and I know that Luca was covering the Bollinger story. EV startups have a difficult time. And, they have the backing of Jeff Bezos. And so I think, they have a good backing, but we'll see how things play out there. The Automotive Press Association is supposed to have an event with them coming up. So,
and you're the president.
I am the president. Yeah.
Right.
Good time.
Yeah.
So have they called you and said, Chris is not available, or we want Peter in her place?
We're waiting to hear that. We're waiting to hear some more from them. So I'm hoping we hear soon, but we were scheduled to have an event with them this spring. So keep a watch out. And if you're not an APA member, please join.
Well, so, I mean, what's interesting about the new guy, though, is he's a former VP of the Amazon Marketplace. So it seems that maybe the powers that are think, okay, she's more of a technical person who will be the president of vehicles, and we'll get this guy in who's going to be able to move I would say metal, but it's a plastic vehicle, so he'll be moving the plastic.
Again, interesting concept. But yeah, I kind of thought the same thing, that they wanted maybe somebody with more of like a financial business mind in that role. But it was interesting for sure to see that headline.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was I think it's noteworthy that she's not leaving. She just is moving to this other product-centered position, which maybe is more of her wheelhouse. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know they're kind of in the midst of setting up this Indiana factory, which I'm sure we're all interested to see how that looks here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, remember how many times we've had Bollinger in here? Remember they brought vehicles in here, and Robert Bollinger came and gave us the origin story of the company, and we lived through that whole lifespan of that company.
I do think that Slate is kind of, what are the other examples of EV startups right now that are still kind of plowing ahead other than Slate? I guess there's the big players, but
look, you need deep pockets. You need investors with really deep pockets. So Lucid's got the Saudi Foreign Investment Fund or Sovereign Investment Fund. Rivian had a bunch of cash, and now they're getting billions from Volkswagen for their zonal electronic architecture. They've got Amazon van sales that have kept them going, and yet they're burning through cash. And so is Lucid, burning through cash.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've always admired about Slate is I love their approach. It's so basic, plain.
I do too.
You know, go find an old abandoned building and make that the factory. Don't spend billions building a new one. You know, I like their approach, and obviously with Bezos, and there's actually a couple of other billionaires who really started the company.
Yeah, right.
I think Bezos's connection to them is very arm's length.
Yes.
But when you've got at least 3 billionaires that are willing to put money into the company, that bodes well for their longevity. But as I keep saying, their little pickup and their little SUV, I mean, it's essentially the same thing, right? With a roof cap that goes on the pickup bed to make it an SUV. They need more models.
You buy that cap with the armrest.
Yeah. They need more models, just like Ford with the UEV. Ford's looking at 5 models in that plant. I think Slate's got to look at the same sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I did the story on Slate last year, and that was what the experts I talked to. It was Sam Bulsmed, which I think we all know him, and he said, they need more option. So maybe once they launch. The first thing is
one step at a time. Absolutely.
Yeah,
you don't want to try to do too much all at once.
Yes.
Certainly as a startup.
So there's another Stellantis thing that just came out today that Xioami and XPeng are talking to them in Europe.
Oh, yeah. Bloomberg.
And so what do you make of that situation?
I guess I'm not totally surprised. I think we've seen a few automakers recently kind of at least have conversations on partnerships. I don't really know a lot about the specifics of this particular, the talks here other than what I've read. But I guess I'm not at all surprised that Stellantis in particular is exploring this. They already have a partnership JV with Leap Motor in Europe. And actually they're starting to sell them, I believe, right now in South America, I think too. So in some ways they're kind of ahead of the game a little bit on this whole idea of, let's partner with the Chinese OEMs in some of these spaces where it makes sense.
So, I mean, from what I read from Bloomberg, it seemed sort of nebulous what the situation would be, but I mean, the only brand name was Maserati that came up. And I was wondering, is it possible that they may be talking to the Chinese companies and saying, why don't you buy this brand?
I mean, it's certainly possible. I do think that the chatter around, just speaking generally, like the chatter around Stellantis is and has been, as you guys I'm sure know, like there's a lot of brands. Are we going to keep all these brands going forward? And, I guess Antonio Filosa, the CEO, has not said a whole lot either way. I mean, he was asked about it at the auto show, and he was kind of non-committal on a couple of the US brands like Alpha and their futures. So yeah, I think that's a possibility, but I don't know that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Europe's a basket case for the mass manufacturers. It really is, and it's getting worse. And they've got excess capacity, and the Chinese are coming in, and I'm sure the EU is saying, look, we really don't want you guys to come in here and build new plants. Why don't you take over existing plants? And then you've got somebody like Antonio Filosa who's going, man, I got a lot of excess capacity and I need money. And I could see the two going together. And yeah, if I were Filosa, I'd be figuring out how I could offload Maserati. It's a basket case. It's losing money. They've thrown a lot of investment into it. It hasn't worked at all. But if he tries to kill it or tried to kill Alpha, the Italian government and the Italian people would be after his hide. I mean, he would be persona non grata. And I don't think any CEO...
That's why they move their headquarters, so he doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I know, but the CEO's got to make tough decisions. But at the same time, I mean, they want to be able to sleep at night, too. This weighs heavily on them. So if you could say, okay, we're offloading Maserati, we're not killing it. We have found somebody who's going to keep the brand going. I could see that happen.
And it's appeal. I mean, it is an appealing name, certainly from the flip side, right? Like it's they've long made very sexy cars. So
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
see it being appealing to some Chinese company.
In fact, and this is where I got to bring up Formula One, Gary, because the rumors are out there that BYD is interested in getting into Formula One. And now the rumors are spreading that maybe it would buy the Aston Martin Formula One team because Lawrence Stroll, the guy who
owns Aston.
Well, he's had to sell chunks off of it. But, what I've read
Nominally.
is he can't believe how much money he's had to put in there. It's not working at all.
It's a great investment, I understand, this whole Formula One thing. Isn't it, Sean? Big investment.
And then Alpine, which is, part of Renault, maybe that's something else because ever since Luca De Meo has stepped away from Renault, the new guy, Provost, one of the first things he did was kill the Formula One engine program. So
silly man.
Maybe sell that to the Chinese. And I'm sure the Chinese would love to get into F1.
You know what I thought was interesting? Sticking with the Chinese, I won't talk about the results of the Cadillac team. I won't talk about the results.
I'll happily talk.
Yeah, I know you'll happily talk about it because you can't lose. If they had come in first, you'd say, "Well, magic." And if they had come in dead last, you'd say, "I said that they'd come in last."
Yeah.
So DNF is still a DNF.
Right.
Anyway, so a name that we haven't heard for a long time used to be one of your guys, Li Shufu.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at this possibility of the Chinese doing something with Stellantis, and I thought, he owns something. Do you realize he owns 9.69% of Mercedes?
Yes.
So the guy who starts Geely, 10% of Mercedes is owned by a Chinese guy.
Right.
So clearly in Europe, this is not a unusual phenomenon.
Yeah. A few months ago, we saw the news from Canada that they were going to welcome Chinese automakers to sell there. I know at a capped amount, but that's another one you're watching because there's a few plants that are kind of just not doing much, right?
Stellantis Brampton plants, number one.
So I know that there are union officials and there's government officials who are concerned about that and have stressed that, but it's going to be, and we had a story I think it was a few weeks back or last month on moving into Mexico. And I didn't realize 15% of the market in Mexico is Chinese automakers.
Might even be higher than that. Well,
yeah.
If you count the GM Chinese-made imports, I want to say it's over 20%.
Yeah, yeah. So you see this creeping in, and I think it does sort of feel like it's inevitable that we'll see more of those options.
So do you think that the Chinese would build or take over a factory or just send some of their excess capacity to Canada?
They definitely have excess capacity that they probably just want to unload there, right? But I guess that depends on what the government is willing and the automakers who own those facilities are willing to do, right? So I don't know. It's I just know that in Mexico there are also facilities that are just hanging out. So the Nissan facility was the one I think that they were just talking about purchasing. So definitely watching closely on how these things move forward.
I just a side note on kind of the Chinese growth in Mexico and now coming in Canada. This is it was news to me. Maybe you guys were already aware of this, but I just thought it was interesting that quite a lot of the Chinese influx of vehicles in Mexico in particular are not EVs. They're gas-powered vehicles. They're not even necessarily plug-in hybrids. And so I just want to underscore that because I feel like so much of this conversation is always about EVs,
mm-hmm.
including when and if they eventually come to the U.S. And down there, it's been, I guess, more and more gas-powered Chinese cars. So.
No, that's right. Chinese are very good at ICE powertrains. Their prices, you can't beat them. And they definitely want to sell more cars outside of China because with the price war going on in China, almost none of them are making money. Mm-hmm. They can take that same Chinese car, sell it in Mexico or Europe or South America or wherever, and make a decent profit on it. So they're keenly interested in getting into new markets and growing that way. Plus, we've just seen for the first 2 months of the year, sales in China of new cars have taken a nosedive. And I mean, like I want to say 23, 25% down. That's a big drop. And so the only thing that's keeping the industry healthy right now is exports. And, even EV sales, new energy vehicles, which includes all the plug-ins, EREVs and PHEVs, even they dropped something like 10%. So that's all the more motivation for the Chinese automakers to try to find new markets.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of electric vehicles that we've seen but won't see, Honda announced that Honda HQ in Japan, so the Honda Zero SUV, the Honda Zero sedan, and the Acura RSX, all of them killed.
That is stunning.
And
stunning. So at last year's CES, Honda made a big splash about those vehicles. I mean, it was their big news at the show and talked all about this. And
haven't they promoted it for multiple years there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
they have. Yes, they have. And they had what, a $16 billion write-off?
well, they're saying that over years it will be that high,
Still.
but within this fiscal year it'll be from $5 to $7 billion loss.
Mm-hmm.
Just this,
Which
fiscal
is
year.
about as much as GM has written off so far.
Right.
And it's a much bigger company than Honda.
That's the problem. So they were saying that, this is a quoting them, profitability of Honda automobile business is currently declining due primarily to, one, the unfavorable impact of changes in U.S. tariff policies on the gasoline and hybrid vehicle business, and two, a decline in the competitiveness of Honda products in Asia due to the impact of the allocation of more resources to the EV development. So basically what they said was that they thought that their EV business would be funded by their ICE and hybrid business.
Right.
But now their ICE and hybrid business is taking a hit, so that funding isn't there. Then they're saying that in markets like China and the other Asian countries, that those countries are more interested in what? Software-defined vehicles. And that,
i.e. Chinese vehicles.
and they're admitting that we were spending so much time concentrating on the electric vehicle part of it and not paying attention to when we had Mark Wakefield here talking about how the Chinese customer just wants screens and whizzy things going on in the car, and they don't care about ride and handling and those sorts of things. And Honda's saying we didn't invest in that sort of research,
Which is an astonishing admission. I've never seen any automaker come out and essentially say, "Yeah, we screwed up."
Right.
No.
So
maybe the ignition switch, they admitted. General Motors admitted they screwed up.
yeah, but how many years did it take for them to
It took a while.
come to that conclusion? And here's this guy who Mibe who has to come right out and say, and if you read the guy's statement, I mean, it's one of the most astonishing statements I've ever read from a CEO who's explaining why they lost a lot of money and the decisions they had to make. And you could look at some of it and say, that's just corporate spin to this thing.
Yeah.
But you just, the way he emphasizes this and isn't hiding at all that we screwed up.
Yeah. No, this is a deep hole that they've got to climb out of. And remember, they had a joint venture with General Motors to develop EVs. Poof, that went poof.
Yeah.
Then there was all this talk that they were going to do things together with Nissan. That never materialized. I wouldn't be surprised if Mibe's on the phone dialing around the world saying, "Hey, who wants to joint venture with us?" They need a partner.
What did you think of those? When you got to see them at CES, what did you think of those products? And were you? Yeah, I don't know. Were you? Did you understand kind of where they were headed with them originally?
Well, I've always said that when a company introduces a new design, it should be edgy. It should make you a little bit uncomfortable, because in a couple of years' time, you're going to get used to that design. And we see that happen a lot, but I still have not warmed up to those designs.
Yeah, I was going to say. Okay.
They're still a little too ungainly to my eye.
So what's going to happen to the Afeela, the Sony Honda collaboration on the highly expensive electric vehicle with a giant screen?
Well, at least they do have a partner on that. So, but their dealers are up in arms because they want to. Afeela wants to sell cars direct, and the dealers want nothing of it. And I'll hasten to add that, at least in the Honda brand, I think 1 out of 3 Honda buyers has told Honda, I would like to have an electric. But these are going to be built in a special...
by a Prologue.
Yeah, these cars are going to be built in a special little plant, the same one that built the NSX when it was in production. So very low production, which would suggest to me that the investment that's gone into it is not as large. So even though they've axed the other 3 EVs that we just talked about, and the fact that they've got a partner, maybe they're just going to push on, but they are going to have a lot of lawsuits from their dealers.
Well, but I wonder about is that, okay, electric vehicles need electric motors. I don't know that Honda's sort of an expert in that space, so they may be relying on a partner or a supplier to provide them with that. And maybe that partner or supplier was one that was going to be on these high volume vehicles, and now they won't be on these high volume vehicles, and so maybe the pricing that once existed will not hold going forward. There could be a lot of
that's a good point.
Issues.
That's a good point, because as you know, in the purchasing world, they say, you want this high volume product? You want to be on that? Okay, well, you got to be on this program too. And by the way, here's the price that you have to give it to us on. And the supplier will say, sure, because now I get the high volume program. So I could see something like that happening.
Yeah, and Honda developed that electric vehicle development manufacturing center, which is separate from the Vehicle Performance Center, HPC. Yeah, Honda Performance Center that you're talking about. Wonder what's going to happen to all those people who were suddenly going to be, working on these vehicles now.
Yeah.
That was part of the big Ohio complex for them? Is that where? Okay. Yeah.
Well,
I think that's a good question. What happened? Weren't the Honda GMs supposed to end production soon? Do they extend that now that these EVs are gone?
Oh, Sean's asking if they're going to extend production of the GM-based EVs, the Honda Prologue and what was the
Acura
Acura?
ZDX.
I thought that one is out.
The Acura ZDX has been dead for...
Yeah.
No,
they haven't done well for them.
Dead kaput. Something went wrong with that relationship.
Well, don't forget the GM-Honda hydrogen collaboration.
Collaboration too.
That's gone. And remember, too, they were going to do GM Cruise.
Right, the Origin vehicle.
Honda put, I think, $1 billion into that program, and they were going to launch it in Tokyo, and that's all. Something happened between those two companies where they just said, okay, forget it. They had a divorce.
Yeah, they were forging through with these partnerships, and then a lot of disruption happened too. So I'm sure that did not help the situation, with COVID and the chip crisis and so on and so forth. Since I've been here covering autos, I feel like it's just crisis after crisis since 2019. But that's the way of the industry. It does feel more disruptive these days than it has in the past. Would you guys agree?
Oh, totally, completely. Yeah. We've never seen anything like this. You had COVID, then the chip shortage, then you had rare earths, and you had tariffs, and now you've got a war with oil prices, and I'm probably forgetting a couple of the other crises that have happened just since the year 2020.
UAW strikes.
So as you guys are out reporting now, within the last week or so, are you hearing from company officials or people at companies about concern about rising gas prices?
I just started asking about this because really, this headline just probably hit over the weekend, I think is when I first saw it. So I think, there's definitely... They're watching it, and I think it's only been a couple days, really, a very short time frame when we saw the spike. So what they're saying is, it has to be like a little bit more lasting effect. But yeah, I think consumers are constantly, I personally don't. I go fill up and move on with my life. But I know a lot of people look at that price and they're like, wow, like I forgot in 2022, we had $5 gas. And I completely forgot about that. That was when.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at some point there was like a peak of $5 a gallon. So yeah, I think they're definitely monitoring it and definitely monitoring the Strait to see how that's affected. And I'm sure that the supply chain crews are monitoring it very aggressively because, there are some things that come out of there. Aluminum is one of the big ones that could maybe hit our industry, right? So
plus a 50% tariff.
Yeah. Aluminum prices, and this is without tariff, are up 15% since the war broke out.
Yeah.
So that's a big increase. And remember, this was the year where, with fuel economy standards and emission standards, being lowered, that the Detroit 3 thought, all right, now we're going to sell a lot of very profitable.
All those Hemis.
Exactly. Hemis and full-size pickups and SUVs. And if gas prices stay high, that mix is definitely going to change.
I haven't kind of done any really recent reporting as we've really seen the climb in the last few days, as you mentioned, but I did do an initial story with my colleague Brianna like a little more than a week ago, and the autumn, the big three didn't really have much to say to us on the record about it, but I think the thinking is that if this extends for a while, as we've seen in the past, that it could change buying patterns, and so a company like Stellantis could be find themselves in this kind of really aggressive pivot to Hemis and everything. Maybe concerned a little bit, shall we say?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe feeling a little bit of whiplash.
Yeah. Hey, we're getting down to the end here. Sean, any good questions from the chat room?
Related to this, what you're just talking about, Offline says, will the Iran war and uptick in gas prices create more interest in EVs?
Yeah, so there's a question. Is if gas prices go up, stay up, what happens with EV sales?
So there was some research from Edmunds that I just looked at, and in 2022 they did increase. Like Edmunds is a car shopping site, so they saw like the clicks of searches did increase when gas prices were up for a bit then. But I think right now it's kind of just like too soon to say, right? Because we don't know when this could end. But I'm sure that those folks are definitely monitoring that closely to see what happens. So,
John, anything else?
Yeah, a couple more quick things. Kit Gerhardt has a comment. Carvana won't let you factory order Chryslers, though. Just kind of saying maybe a knock against Carvana as opposed to a traditional Stellantis franchise dealership.
Oh, so
interesting.
You're not mic'd up, are you? No. Okay, so we got a question from Kit Gerhardt noting that, and maybe you can pick up on this then, Luke. The Carvana stores, you cannot order factory direct. You will have to buy off the lot. Not that a lot of people factory order a car. They usually buy what's on the lot.
That's a good question. I actually didn't know. I don't know that for certain, but that seems like it would make sense if that was the case. I mean, that's kind of how the model works, right? Is like they've got the website set up. This is what we've got in stock right now.
Right.
Here's the straightforward pricing on it, et cetera. So,
but okay, did they buy so? Let's say John owns the dealership. Did some guy from Carvana come and buy John's franchise?
Yeah.
So the franchise still exists. So I don't understand why they wouldn't be able to direct order from the factory. Because they're not.
Yeah, you might be right. Like I don't, but maybe the I don't know. Maybe the customer isn't able. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe Carvana doesn't want to do factory order. It's not that they can't. To your point,
I mean, they are getting the cars from the factory.
It's all what's on the lot,
Right.
So, anything else, Sean?
So they can put in those big things.
Mike the Car Geek says, if Gary is right and Chris Feuell goes to CarMax, he feels that you, Dad, should be buying Gary lunch.
Buying me lunch for the F1 story, but we won't go there.
Mike the Car Geek says that if Chris Feuell does go to Carvana, as per Gary's suggestion, then I should buy Gary lunch. And I should, because he'll have proven himself to be a genius.
You should go for the lottery.
And then last thing, Robert Foster says to you, Gary, you mentioned the DNF for Cadillac. He said the other Cadillac did finish the race.
Yeah, we're talking Formula One. Gary had
it
mentioned.
finished 3 laps down in 16th.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a DNF.
No,
Well,
I'm
Ross
just
didn't finish.
I'm just saying that Ford did better. Verstappen came in 8th with that Ford engine. So
They have the other DNF.
no, yeah, I mean Hijack had the DNF and he finished 20th.
I read they did better than expected, though, Cadillac. Or...
That's what everybody's going to tell you, that they did better than expected.
Okay, I mean, I'm not a racing pro, so.
Yeah. No. Look, I've said all along that Cadillac, if they get 1 point this year, they should declare victory.
Wow.
And they will not be in the hunt for a win for at least 3 seasons.
Is that just typical?
Okay,
Yeah.
but then, John, so in 3 seasons, they'll start using their new
Cadillac engine?
Cadillac engine. And then will you say well, it'll take some time for that engine to be able to get the bugs worked out. So 3 years from
No.
then,
I'll go on the record that when their engine is in the car, they better be fighting for a podium.
I think if any company spends $1 billion this year, they ought to be fighting for a podium right now, but not my money.
Check back in on this one.
Yeah. Coming back.
They did do well.
Sounds like a serious rivalry heating up.
yeah.
This is good.
No, exactly. It's healthy. It's good. This is why people tune into the show, but it's also why we got to end it right now. So Kaylee Hall from Reuters,
Thank
Luke
you.
Ramseth, Detroit News. Great to have you guys on the show.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Read their stuff. Go on,
Yes.
read their stuff.
Yeah.
Subscribe to the news.
Please do.
Subscribe to Thomson Reuters.
Yeah.
Our stuff is also on the news, so if you subscribe to the news,
Hey,
There you go.
thank
get
you.
Reuters too.
Done in
Good
one.
plug.
That's
Yeah.
right. Real good. Okay, Gary, I'll see you here next week.
Okay.
And I hope to see all of you too.
AutoLine After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg Warner. The automotive industry continues to evolve, and so do the opportunities to define it. Borg Warner, one of the world's most admired companies, gets partners where they need to go. Let's do something big together.